Hello there, welcome to the loading zone. Let's get loaded. Welcome everyone to another exciting episode of the Loading Zone. My name is Rebound Naming, your financial financial advisor. Important disclosure. Please note that these videos do not constitute financial advice and should therefore not be seen or treated as such. For adequate advice, please seek the counsel of a registered financial advisor who is skilled and equipped to do so. Now that is out of the way, today's topic, I want us to discuss choosing or selecting a fund. But I want to break it into 4 separate episodes covering 4 elements that is important when choosing a fund. So I've touched on asset classes and how a fund is actually put together. And last week I explained the difference between an endowment as well as a unit trust. If you're watching these videos for the first time and all these sound foreign to you, don't worry. These videos are available on Facebook, Instagram, as well as YouTube. Do yourself a favor and go back on those videos to get an understanding of what it is that I'm actually talking about. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Please, I'd really appreciate it. A lot. Okay, let's get into it. There are various factors that one needs to consider when choosing a fund. These factors can be the difference between you reaching your financial goals or you not reaching your financial goals. So there are 4 key things that one needs to consider when choosing a fund. And they are the risk profile, the fees, past performance, as well as your investment goals. All of these factors can be found in something called a fund fact sheet. So what is a fund fact sheet? A fund fact sheet is a document that details all the information one would need to understand how a fund has been structured and what the fund's goals are. Hence, fund's fact sheet. Simple, né? A fund fact sheet will tell you who is managing the fund, where your funds will be invested, the investment philosophy of this fund, past performance of this fund, or how much is invested in this fund, among other things. So in most cases, you can use the same fund for an endowment as well as a unit trust. What this means is you can use the same fund to invest money for your child's education, for your retirement plan, or even money that you're putting aside for a rainy day. It wouldn't be wise to actually structure things that way, but it's an option that you as an investor can decide on. So as mentioned last week, there are various kinds of funds that one can invest in within the different institutions that offer these funds. So all these different institutions that offer these funds would have like a whole bunch of funds that they offer to their clients. All these funds are grouped into different categories, and these categories are referred to as risk profiles. So what is a risk profile? Risk profiling is a process that is used to determine how much of a risk an investor is willing to take. It basically assesses your risk appetite. This is typically done in a simple way by way of you as an investor answering a questionnaire called the risk profile questionnaire. Smart. It's one of those I strongly agree, strongly disagree kind of questionnaire. Each answer of this questionnaire is allocated a point. And at the end of the questionnaire, you add all those points together, and the amount that you have will put you within a certain band that makes you a particular risk profile. Financial advisors use this process of risk profiling to understand an investor's risk appetite and ultimately to be in a position to recommend a fund for the investor. It's important to note that one's risk appetite may not necessarily be suitable for what their investment goals are. It is therefore the financial advisor's job to take all these things into consideration when making recommendations for you as an investor. As mentioned previously, each asset class has a certain level of risk that's attached to it. I've also mentioned that there is no such thing as a risk-free investment, even if you're investing in a bank. So it goes without saying that each fund would have a certain level of risk depending on how the combination or mixture of asset classes is designed within this particular fund. Remember how a fund is actually structured? Different investors come together, pool their money together into the fund or the pot, and it is then distributed into different asset classes. But you'll find that there are some funds that are actually just purely invested into one particular asset class, like property, for example. These kind of funds would, however, be spread into different types of property investments or equity investments if it is an equity fund. Remember, equities are shares. When a fund is spread into different asset classes, this is called diversification. Diversification is important because it allows you to mitigate or lessen the level of risk that one is actually taking. Let me put things into perspective in this way. Say the property market isn't doing well for a particular period of time, a year or two. Having a diversified fund into these different asset classes allows you to soften the blow during this period where property isn't performing well. You've heard the saying, don't put all your eggs in one basket. This is essentially it. Diversification. So funds are risk profile, meaning they're given a certain level of risk that an investor is exposed to. So there are 5 levels or risk profiles rather, which are pretty self-explanatory. You have your conservative, moderately conservative, moderate, moderately aggressive, and lastly, aggressive risk profile. The image you see right now shows the level of risk with each risk profile, with conservative being the safest and aggressive being the most volatile or the riskiest. So basically, on the left hand side, you have more safe or less volatile risk profiles. And as you move more to the right of this image, the more risky your investment becomes. So you're probably looking at this and thinking, I'll just invest conservatively and make sure that my money is safe. Well, there's 2 things that make it a bit of a catch-22 in some instances. Firstly, the potential or expected returns on a conservative fund are usually less than what you would expect to get in an aggressive fund. The higher the risk, the higher the potential returns. And the lower the risk, the lower the potential returns. The second problem is investing in a conservative investment or conservative fund usually doesn't outperform inflation. Quick reminder, inflation is the general increase of goods and services. When you're investing, you want to get a return that is better or higher than the general increase in goods and services. Think of it this way. If I have 10 Rand and I want this 10 Rand to be invested for a period of 5 years, if my 10 Rand today can buy a loaf of bread, when I come out of this investment after 5 years, I still expect to buy a loaf of bread plus milk maybe. The typical fund fact sheet will show you the risk profile of that particular fund. It'll also show you in which asset classes the fund invests in, how much of the entire fund is allocated to the different asset classes, and who the fund manager actually is. What you'll also see in a fund fact sheet is the recommended term that you should invest in that fund. So the more aggressive the fund is, the longer the recommended period you need to stay invested in. And in the same spirit, the more conservative a fund is, the shorter the investment period that is recommended. So what are the key things that I want you to take away from this episode? A risk profile helps an investor to determine how much of a risk they're willing to take. 5 risk profiles ranging from conservative to aggressive. Thirdly, the higher the risk, the higher the potential return. And the lower the risk, the lower the potential return. Also, the more aggressive a fund is, the longer the recommended time that you would have to stay invested in that fund. The more conservative a fund is, the shorter the recommended period to stay invested in that fund. That said, I'm gonna love and leave you right over here. This is South Africa after all. Data's very expensive. Thank you for tuning in. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you guys next week when I load you with some more information. My name is Rebounden Naming, signing out.